The Renmore Reaper, Part 2, Yen. Looking at the moldy bread in her hand, tonight was set to be the last night before another week of starvation. Another week to question existence and wonder why she left. This daughter of the void, birthed by Mother Nature, was all alone. A nameless kid with hate embedded in her heart. Hate that needed a place to go. It was scratching and clawing at her skin, trying to convince its master to allow it just one moment of control, for that is all it needed. This lost cub found herself in a forgotten bando listening to the rain with dreams of another meal. Thoughts about her next move lingered in her head as the smell of freshly baked food merged itself with wind. Scrounging for a meal on your own was already a struggle, but doing so in a place like Renmore could just as easily result in finding the bad end of a blade. The more she thought about it, the less appetizing it became. This feeling wasn't about hunger, it was about her energy or lack thereof. Each question convinced her further that she was not meant to be. A mistake, a disaster piece no one wanted. The rain dancing on the roof and wind blowing through the cracked window were her only company, along with occasional bursts of thunder that rocked these withering walls. Then footsteps broke the cycle. Heavy and careless, they made their way to the door, stopping when they noticed it had been moved since they were last home. An uninvited guest, she found herself once more. It all started to make sense now. Despite this abandoned shop being run down and ragged, in Renmore it may as well have been a mansion. Of course someone lived here. This endling found herself with only one option, to run.
But for what? Your life ain't worth nothing anyways,
said the voice in her head, a voice of pure dread and hatred that knew exactly how to stoke her flame.
If only you weren't weak, you could make something of yourself tonight. Just find some random neek on the end's grip and glide. Or even better, you could be the one who ends up face down and leaves.
Its words cut like glass due to its abrupt yet jagged point. Why keep fighting for nothing? Maybe it was for the best if her heart was to stop this uphill battle. Many times has a blade sounded like the most simple option. No more thoughts, no more voice telling her she wasn't good enough. Regardless, she shook the voice clear, like she did so many times before. It was time to leave. There was no talking yourself clear in Renmore. Even more so when she saw the silhouette of the man stepping inside. He was well known. She even recognized him before seeing the notorious knife pulled from his waistband. A striker affiliated with a gang called Wayside. This was a man known not for talking, but for slinging metal with renowned killers. It all made sense now. A bando with bags and food left unguarded. Of course it was too good to be true. Votan did not care for her. It was clearly no sign from the gods. Yet another time in her life when she was not welcome. Another moment searching for a place to go. As he slipped through the door, blade ready to dish out death, the window opposite her appeared to provide the only way out. The broken glass would surely gift a familiar sting, but she had no time to think on that. With no guardian, our cub had to scramble before it was too late. Like a mother bear trying to defend its children, she charged from the shadows straight at the window. Struggling in a fight against gravity, her hands and legs scraped shards, drawing blood as she lifted herself up. But she could hear them, those heavy boots slamming the ground before a hand grabbed her waist. With an intent to pull her back from the window, he yanked her down, causing her legs to raise and head to dip straight down into broken glass. Deep red showered the window and floor as 1,000 microscopic shards traveled into her lip, some slicing clean through as her head slid from window to floor, but many remained inside, dicing her inner lip with future infection. Now she found herself with no time to escape. One way or another, a legacy would end tonight. His hand grabbed her shoulder, ready to flip her around for what she imagined that long blade would make of her. Then it happened. The passenger within. Whether she meant for it or not, it took complete control. Her hand was dripping with blood from the glass, but it wasn't until now she noticed that this cut was not accidental. Her hand was only cut because she had broken off a piece of that glass. There was no more thinking, just instincts, a burning tornado of sickness and disgust for the world that tossed her aside. All of a sudden, his boots went silent against the stone. Vilna put a halt on the whipping wind and brewing storm. The world went silent. Even her heart that was about to beat out of her chest ceased to pulse within her. There wasn't a single noise within miles. Pure silence and isolation, the same as every cold night she spent alone. As he flipped her over to see his victim, she gripped the shard with malicious intent and drove the angle of glass straight into his throat with little to no resistance. He never saw it coming, and yet, as the shard grazed off bone, she somehow never felt a thing. Not the heft of her swing, nor the blood splatter across her arm and freckle her face, and most certainly not any form of remorse. For the first time, her mind was not present in this restless world. She was only watching from behind a barrier of heated veins hidden by the greatest armor to ever adorn her, an armor of pure numbness. With a clang only heard by one, the knife dropped to the floor as he stumbled back, holding a fountain of life from leaving his neck. It felt so good watching his expression change as she stood tall, the realization that memories would soon fade. It almost felt better than the rigid grip offered by his elongated kitch. Almost. In this plane of silence, she couldn't hear him scream. She couldn't hear or feel a thing, or so she thought. Oddly, only one thing in this moment she felt. It wasn't clear as to why, but who was she to question it? After all, it was only now that she realized how good it felt to punch a blade down into someone so hard that it began to chip marrow and break bones. He tried to distance himself, but her youth made her quick. She leaped onto him, causing him to lose footing as his own blade splashed him to the ground time and time again. A flurry of hate and sorrow delivered in each blow, paired with the thought of everyone that left her or wronged her, made each strike much more aggressive. Every smile, every couple seen walking together, every ounce of happiness she had seen in others throughout her life fueled what she was now dishing out. Life would not be that way, filled with smiles and love. That was a concept she didn't yet comprehend, like many others never taught. Subconsciously, she counted to 9, then in the midst of murder locked eyes with him. Terror is what she saw as he shared his final moments with her, but for our lonely cub, she saw a hint of respect. Maybe it wasn't respect in its traditional form, but respect born from fear. He didn't take precaution when he enclosed this wild animal, and its bite was much deadlier than he could have ever imagined. A small snake with venom-laced fangs delivering a fatal bite. Finally, sound returned to her as she pulled the blade from him one last time. 9 may have been the number she counted to, but the marks in him told a much more savage story.
Relentless.
Red smears covered her as she wiped blood from the blade onto her pants, huffing out the last bit of anger she had. Then the beating of her heart and crashing of thunder let her know the fight was truly over. Every one of her senses had returned. It was still a mystery to her why she didn't hear or feel a thing during the battle, but suddenly the pain hit her all at once. A mouthful of torment that stung so bad it felt like her jaw was coming loose. There was so much blood racing from her lip, she knew she couldn't leave it to fix itself like previous wounds. This time required intervention, but first she needed a clear view of the damage that had been done. A few ideas popped up into her head as she ravaged his pockets, taking anything and everything he had. She even went as far to take the heavy black boots he was wearing. While they were a bit big for her now, he wouldn't be needing them anymore, and she couldn't pass up an opportunity at gaining something so valuable. If she couldn't wear them, she could trade them for coin, or better yet, some much-needed nutrition. Now it was time to find that weird wall in the tavern she had seen a few months back when she last snuck in looking for food. A wall that somehow reflected all image back at you, something she had only experienced with water before. That was the only way known to her to get a glimpse at what had been done. All she knew right now was that it was enough blood to make a man sick. With her stomach beginning to turn, she closed in towards the door only for her eyes to meet with that last piece of moldy bread again. That was when she realized this feeling was not caused by blood, but by hunger. It seemed that somehow sending that man down gave her purpose or justified her being. And while it may be a while before she could eat again without pain, at least when she walked out of this bando with one last piece of life, she felt like there might be a place for her in this world after all. 16 years of existence, and this was the first time this child felt yen. Just one step out into the pouring rain while glancing down at the sinister kitch gripped firmly in her right hand, she knew that she had found her obsession.